Hello fishing friends, this is Matthew with Outfishing 13 bringing you another reel repair and service video. Today I'm going to be working on this reel right here. This is the Zebco Pro Staff 888. Now this reel, this service video can be used for the 808 that's of the same model. I think it's an 808 BH, or sometimes called the Boss Hog. And there's other 808s that are like this as well. Basically, they have the slits like this. They have the bite alert here. They have a plastic body. Some of them will have a double handle. This one has a big power crank on it. But the internals are very similar. One of the main differences with the Pro Staff and the 808 Hog of this model that has the slits going this way is this one is a 3-ball bearing reel. And but if you get a Boss Hog, you can order 2 bearings that fit this reel here, that fit on the handle shaft, and you can actually upgrade it a little bit. This reel does not have a bearing in the nose cone, so you can't make it a 4-ball bearing reel. So let's get into it and service this and take care of it and show you how it goes together. So for this service video, you may need a small pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, a small screwdriver, some grease. I got my tri-flow grease and my good Lucas red grease, which I use for the gears, and this is I use for everything else. You'll want some lightweight reel oil. This is my hot sauce by Quantum. I also got some old grease here, oil here. This reel is in really good condition. It's practically brand new. I bought it. It came from an estate sale, and I don't think it ever had really been used. It had been put in a box, and that's where it stayed. But when I looked at it, it had most of the original grease and hardly anything, any wear and tear on it at all. So it was like nearly like a new in box. So let's just take a look at this 888 Pro Staff. These 888s came with a steel foot that's riveted to a plastic base. This particular model is, I don't know if you can see it there, it's a PS888A. Okay, and you can still buy parts for this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the front cone and take all that apart first. I want to push in the button here and pull out some string. Unscrew this one off. Some of them just rotate a little turn and then come off with this one, screws off and on. And I want to take the nose cone off, so I hold on to the handle and screw that off. See, this one, if you look in there, this is all brand new grease. And I just don't see any wear and tear on it at all. And all this grease is all brand new on the spool there. To take this off, we need to take and remove this retaining ring. Okay. Got a little parts thing. I'm going to put some parts in. Okay, now we're ready to take the spool off. Okay, I've got a drag washer here that's a keyed drag washer. And then we got the plastic washer there, or Teflon. Okay, then we got a red one back here. Let's make sure we put the red one back in its spot. And then the spool is off. Okay, I'm just going to keep that all together. Okay, now it's always important to take these washers off the right way. This one right here is a tapered drag washer. See that? It's thicker on the outside and thinner on the middle. It's flat on the top and cupped on the back. It's important that the cup side go down. This right here, this is really a lot like the 733 Hog. It has a keyed spring washer right here. It's important that this goes back the same way. So I'm going to keep these two together. Okay, and then this has a huge drag gear. This has a ramp on it, and it's 180 degrees on this particular ramp right there, or the cam, so that you can really go from very fine drag to pretty tough. So that's pretty nice. Okay. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to take the handle off. So you can use a big screwdriver or a coin. Okay, so there's, and this handle is reversible. It can go on either side. So depending on which hand you like to crank with. Okay. Okay, now to take the back off, it's a one-piece back, and you have to take the handle off, and then you can take this back cover off. Okay, there we go. I pushed on the handle a little bit and it pushed out. And then you got the inside here. We don't need to take any of this apart to replace this. It's all pretty clean. If it was dirty in the inside there, you could actually take and wash this off with hot water and some soap. So I'm just going to set that over here. Okay, let's take a look at the inside here. Okay, here's my drag gear. And it's got a little clicker on the right here. This right here is the little clicker. So all you need to do to take that out is to remove this little drag gear. There we go. And then you can slip this out. Okay. And there's the little clicker. This is just made of plastic. Some are made out of aluminum, the older ones. Okay, let's take a look at some other things we got here. Now let's take a look at how this bite alert works. So when it's engaged, it disengages the reverse stop. When you unengage it, then it has a reverse stop that works. Okay, this one, like I said, has two ball bearings. It has a ball bearing here and a ball bearing on this side. It also has a ball bearing down underneath here. Okay, to take this shaft out, we need to take and remove a couple things. We need to remove this plate here that holds in that bearing. On the 808, it'll be a bushing. So let's take that apart. These are self-tapping screws. Don't lose them. It doesn't matter which way it goes. Either way would work. Okay, let's take off this side here. This has the bearing retainer here is a tapered or a wedged tapered bearing retainer. And it's made so that it pushes the bearing up against this to tighten it up. So let's take that one out. This right here doesn't hold the bearing in. It adjusts the bearing. I think according to, so there's that one. Now notice one side is flat and one side has this little wedge. See that? Flat wedge. the flat side goes up against the bearing. Okay, we got one more bearing retainer. So there you go. We'll put both these side by side here. Okay, we're ready to remove the bearings. Okay. So there's one bearing. This is a big bearing. I can't remember the size. I'll measure it here in a minute. I think it's a 17 by 8 by 5 millimeters. Or it might be 17 by 9. It's a big bearing. Okay, now that we have that out, let's take a look at, with me. Okay, so, but if you can see down in there, there's a little lever that's down in there that this has to be on. A little spring. So when we take this out, we need to make sure that we're putting it back together the right way. And we don't need to take this all apart because it's not broken. There's a little retainer right here. We don't need to take that out. We don't need to take this all apart. We can oil it. It's good and clean. I would only take it apart if it was really dirty and needed to be taken apart. Okay. So let's just set this aside and look at how this is going together on this side here. So this little plastic piece goes down and it goes around a little lever down inside here, right down in there as a little lever. That little lever is what engages the anti-reverse. Okay, so we'll take this off. Okay, now this little anti-reverse pawl is kind of cool. It has these little bearings in there. They need to sit right between those 5 spots on this. What happens is this is a continuous anti-reverse. The newer ones they make and they put it on the main shaft. This particular anti-reverse is very clever. It's pretty simple, so be careful when you take it apart that you don't lose any of those little bearings. So when the shaft turns one way, it goes free, but if you back it up, it engages. Now when this right here moves to a certain direction, it will allow it to spin either way. Okay? So we'll just take this apart here. It's got a little washer right there. These are shims. Okay, there's 2 of them. Make sure they both go back on. And then you can see those little bearings all fit in a little, there's a little pocket right there. So they need to be spaced just right. And I can see that this one's kind of dirty. We need to make sure we clean this one up well. Oh, something, oh, I see what came out. It's a little spring. It's a little tiny spring. Gotta make sure that gets back together right. Okay, so I'm gonna take this off. It goes together like this with this pointing that way. All 5 of those. I'll clean and put a little grease on. So let's take and clean this up, and then we'll put it back together. Oh, let's take out the center shaft here. It's in really good shape. Like I said, I don't think that this has been used. There's the bearing right there. This is the main middle bearing. It's a little bit smaller than the shaft bearings. I'm going to measure those. I'm just going to clean this off a little bit. All these other parts are in good shape, but if you need to clean them off, use WD-40 or wash it off with soap and water to dry it out really good, and then start putting it back together. So let's put this back together in reverse order. First thing we need to do is we're going to add a little bit of grease to these ball bearings, or just, personally I'm just going to add a little bit of oil and then pack a little bit of grease on it. So we just want to add a little bit of oil here. And then I'm going to take some of my tri-flow grease. I don't want real heavy grease on this. My brushes. And I'll put a little bit of grease on it, just on the inside here. Okay, put that back in. Okay. I want to put my sticky Lucas grease on these. Good. Okay, let's put this back together. I'm going to use some tri-flow grease on this to put this back together with. And first I'll put some sticky grease on these gears. Okay, these two washers need to go back on. Then this piece goes on like so. And then I'm going to use a little bit of, I don't need to use any tri-flow grease, I just need to put each one of these little pieces back in. And like I said, there's a little pocket. You can see that little pocket right there. And that each bearing needs to go in that little pocket. Okay, we got all those in there. Make sure they're all spaced evenly. Put it back together. Okay, I'm going to set that right there. Now here's this little piece right here. For some reason, one of these little springs had come out. So I'm going to make sure it gets put back in where it needs to. Okay, see how I did that? I just kind of pushed that into that little slot with my fingernail, and it just went right in there. So I got those all in. I put some grease on here, and there's grease on those little bearings. I'm going to add a little bit more of the tri-flow grease to them, just a little bit, to make sure there's some grease in there. You just want to get a little bit of grease in there so that when they work around, they'll work really well. Okay, this needs to lay flat down on the bottom of the case there. And so this needs to be oriented just like that. Okay. Okay, now that we have that in, we're ready to put this back in. and you want to make sure that that little white fingers down in here go around the little pin right down in there. I know it's hard to see, but those two little fingers have got to go around the pin down in there. And that's the pin that engages the anti-reverse and the clicker. So we got that in there properly. And we can put the bearings in. So for the bearings, I'm just going to add a little bit of, just a little bit of grease and with a little bit of oil. Okay. Oh, I wanted to measure these. So in millimeters, it's a 17 millimeter wide bearing. The inside is 9 millimeters by 5 millimeters wide. Okay, so you can seat them down with this most of the way. Let's see, I don't know if this will seat it down any farther. No, we'll have to. There we go, we seated it in there. And we seated it in there. Okay, so we're going to add now the bearing retainers. We'll start with this side first. Oh, before I go any farther, one of the things I want to do is I want to check the anti-reverse. So it's working good. There we go. Everything works really good. If I had put it together wrong, it wouldn't work. Add the clicker. You have to hold this down to do it backwards or else it pulls it out, but the beta lurk works great. Okay. Remember, it doesn't matter which way these goes on. They go on the same. They can go on either way or either side. Okay, there we go. Now, we'll put this bearing wedge in there. The ones on the 733 have a spring on them. These ones you just tighten down until all this does is it adjusts the lash between this gear and that gear. And you don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose. Snug that up. Snug that one up. Okay, that's good. Okay, you have to lay the handles off to put it back together. I'm going to add a little bit of oil down into this bearing here. And a little bit down into this one here. A little bit of grease right there. Just about forgotten. We need to put the gear back in. This gear right here. That side goes this way. There you go. And I'll put this in. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on this. Okay, it's got a slot in there. Need to get that slot lined up. push that all the way down until it's flush like that. And then put a little bit of grease on it. It's got grease around it, but I'll just put a little bit of grease, extra grease on it. And it just goes like that. Now you can put the handles on. I'm going to put the handle on the left, because I like to crank with my left hand. We'll put some grease on here. Put this on. Put it where it's all the way loose, right there. See how to stop right there? Put a little bit of grease on here. This is the spring washer. That key goes right in there like so. Okay. Put a little grease on there. This is the tapered. This is the tapered drag washer. The cup side goes down, flat side goes up. Put this red drag washer on there. Grease. I'm going to take and grease the spool shaft. Then put the spool on. Nice and clean. It has some extra grease on there, which is fine. Grease this. And this washer here. Grease. Keyed drag washer here. Then we can put this in. Just like that, because it needs to go in that keyway too. All right. This has been greased really well. I like to see that grease. This is super clean. I don't need to do anything with this except for put it back on. Tighten it up. Push the button. Get those to go in. Spin it on until it's snug. Okay, there you are. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel as I bring you other Zebco reel repair and service videos. And give me a big thumbs up and share my channel with your fishing buddies that like Zebco. Anyways, thanks and have a great day. Bye.